Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about past lives, and in particular I'm going to talk about people who've been lovers in past lives and relationships in past lives. They're soulmate type questions, you know. Who were we and how can we recognise each other? And that's the most important thing I'm going to look at today. I made myself some notes here. I'm going to look at what are the most important things that indicate to us that we've been lovers in a past life perhaps. Okay, so let's start with some of the history of this first of all, because someone you ought to read if you're interested in this subject is Dr. Ian Stevenson, because he wrote, spent 40 years studying this, and he wrote the book 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation, which went into all sorts of fascinating stuff where he looked at kids from all sorts of different cultures. I think he interviewed 3,000 children he interviewed to do this, and came up with some fantastically interesting cases where kids had remembered previous lives and previous families and knew the names and could recognise people from those families. So that's something well worth looking into, as well as my books, of course. And yeah, because they had phobias, they had memories, they had all sorts of things. And there was one case actually, just before I go on to the actual soulmate stuff, but there was a really interesting case that Jane and I came across. It was completely coincidental. We were in a fossil shop near Cornwall sort of way, and we were looking at the fossils, and Jane and I were looking in the cabinets, and there's a little boy looking next to me and could see we were interested, and he said, you know, I used to live in this area, he said. Oh, did you? Did you, young man? He was only about 4 to, I don't know, 5-ish, 5, 6-ish, I think. Only, you know, it's not very big, really, young kid. And he said, yes, I used to live in the castle near here, you know, and my name was Edward, and I used to do this, and I rode my horse, and I was this and that. But he's, okay, I thought, oh, is this a kid's fantasy? But he went into such detail, incredible detail of all what he knew and what his family members were and the names of them and everything like this, and I'm rather taken aback, and so's Jane, you know. I'm really interested too, because obviously I immediately thought past lives. And his mum came up afterwards and said, oh, was he telling you all about his previous life? I said, yeah, he just told me. I didn't start talking to him or anything. And she goes, yeah, no, he goes on about this all the time. He never stops. He keeps on and on about how he lived before, and it's always consistent and things. I would have loved to have been able to get much more detail out of him and logged this like Stevenson's did, and wrote it in a book some perhaps, you know. But we were just passing, really. And there was that the mother was off soon after, but she explained to us that he talks like this all the time, and anybody that will listen to him, he wants to tell them about this previous life. So that was one of those cases that I'm sure Stevenson would have found absolutely fascinating to interview there, you know, because it was such an interesting story, such an interesting lad there with such interesting ideas. So, but how do we know that we've met somebody from a past life? We don't all have that level of recall. But we do kind of intuitively know when we've met someone. Now, the story of how Jane and I met is logged in other videos and in my books and things. But so I'm not going to talk about that so much now. But in short, Jane and I knew that we known each other before. Okay, we met in a spiritualist church. I was demonstrating mediumship from the platform, and although Jane's a medium too, she had gone along to see the medium at the time, which happened to be me. And I had a message for her that I gave her from the spirit world, from her grandmother, who'd been pestering me to give her the message, and Jane had been pestered by her grandmother to go to the church. So the spirit world were very much involved in this. So there was that spirit connection by the spirit world. But also, there was this feeling that we'd known each other before. So how did Jane and I know when we came to meet afterwards? And I went round to see Jane. And how did she know as well? Because and how do you know, more importantly? Because you've obviously may have met your soulmate, or for someone you feel is your soulmate, or you may hope to meet your soulmate, or whatever. But so what's the signs? Well, so the first one that I've written down here on my little cards here is it's in the eyes. You know, because often when we connect with people, we look into the eyes of each person, don't we? And we see a slightly different connection. Now, if you look into a complete stranger's eyes, for example, the first thing you tend to do is avert your eyes, isn't it? Because it's kind of natural to kind of do that, because we think of the windows as the soul. windows of the soul. You know, we look straight into a person's soul, and not many people are prepared to bare their soul to the world. You know, but when you meet someone very, very close to you, if you look into a child's eyes, for example, your own children's eyes, there's no looking away. You straight connect because you're on the soul level with them. But with a complete stranger that you meet, who is of the opposite sex or whatever, and it's your soulmate connection, there's no barrier there. So we see in the eyes, and I think that, you know, they say, don't they, you know, their eyes met across the crowded room. in Jane and I's case, the guys met across the crowded seance room or the spiritualist church, you know. But there's this connection, and I think the eyes say it, actually. The eyes have it there, you know, and that's a very important thing to take into account, I think, when you first meet someone. And also this same idea that kind of connects in a very similar way is this instant feeling of familiarity with the person. You know, it's like you know them. You know, you talk. You might be a little bit nervous when you first meet someone. Yeah, that's natural because there's all your own you know, social things there. But there's a certain instant familiarity with the person. It's like, I know you. Do I? You know, it's like almost like you recognise them, like you know, it's like a face you've seen on television, but you can't remember if you've seen them on television or you've seen them, you knew them from school or something like that. There's an immediate sort of feeling as of a memory. It's like, oh, who are you? You know, it's like the name's almost on the tip of your lips. You know, you know, I know your name, I know your face, and you get that feeling that you've known that person. That's perhaps the most important, more important than just the way the eyes connect, actually, because it's like we just know, you know, and we can't explain it. And I don't think that's sort of infatuations that people have, or that you just really, really like the person, you know. I think it's deeper than that, you know. It's a connection that you kind of, until it happens to you, you don't really know what it's about, but it kind of happens on a very deep kind of soul-like level, you know, and that's what makes it different. And the thing is, it's not just you that would experience this, you both would. And that's the important thing. You both get the connection. You're both at ease, in a way. You know, you're both at ease because you kind of been used to each other, you know. And it may be also the same thing could apply, actually, to your enemies too. There's an instant, I don't like that person. You know, what am I? You know, that person's going to rip me off. There's something wrong with them. That might be a intuitive feeling, but then there might be that negativity that you can feel instantly with someone that's been an enemy in a past life. So I suppose one of the other things you have to ask yourself is, what sort of emotions do you feel then? So do you feel whoa? You know, do you think you know? What are the feelings you have? So this is one of the other things that I think you could connect. Now that's on a very human level as well, remember, because you could misunderstand your feelings. But I think when you meet someone that is meant to be your soulmate, there is an instant feeling that it's right somehow. You know, I mean, I think when you're a psychic person, you do kind of know when a person's good or bad. You trust your gut instincts, you trust your first impressions. You know, that's a natural thing in all walks of life. But there's a certain exaggerated feel of it when you meet someone that's meant to be with you, or that's been with you before in a previous life. There's something much more powerful on the emotional level, and you just know. And again, it's mutual. It's often mutual. I think it's usually mutual. And maybe the other person hasn't always immediately become aware of it, but usually when there's a really powerful connection, it's like you both know. You both kind of know. So look at your emotions, okay? Now, another one that I think is kind of quite important. It's not just what, you know, you might obviously talk a lot when you first meet each other, but there's also with people that you that you think about your best friends in life and your people that you've known all your life. You could sit in a room and you could both be completely quiet and silent, and you wouldn't think twice of it, you know, because that's the way you are. You're so at ease with one another's company that you feel at ease naturally. So there's naturally not awkward silences, it's just silence sometimes. You know, you just get on with things in the silence. You feel at ease with each other's company. And people that get on with each other as married couples and couples generally, you know, you feel at ease with one another. You don't have to keep filling in the spaces, or telling you more about me, or or like when people, particularly when people first meet, they kind of overload the person with everything. Americans love to do it, particularly. Sorry, Americans, I know a lot of you visit, but hi, I'm an Aquarian, I'm Craig, I do this, I do that, and I do this. My job's this. You're trying to overload people, almost do a hard sell, So there's a natural ease when you meet someone that you're meant to be with. You don't feel that need to have to explain and tell them everything about you, because it's like the other person kind of already knows. They kind of know, and there's that natural ease that comes with a past life connection. Now, there's a lot of interesting stories on my website actually about this, because I'm going to tell you a few more points in a minute, but there's a whole series of stories there of cases that I had to study for an article I was asked to write for the Daily Mail some years ago. And I'll put a link in the bottom here somewhere in the description, so you can go and have a look at those too, in which I interviewed people who had some amazing stories to tell about their past lives, and their memories of being with each other in a previous life in particular. I followed the same theme through, and so people that had died in the Vietnam War and knew each other. So that was quite a young person who I'd interviewed for that. And then there was somebody there who had believed they were lovers in medieval times, and another couple that were that she nursed him when he was dying in the First World War. There's all sorts of interesting stories there, so go and have a look at my website. I'll put the link in the comments, in the actual description, but also actually put your ideas in the comments too, would be quite nice, because I'm really interested in these stories, and I share them with others. Have you met someone, have you got an interesting story where there was a past life memory? Okay, or you can put it on the website too, because you can respond to the articles. Anyway, so we've got this. We can see it in the eyes. We get the emotional connection. We observe silence with each other, and actually, of course, we have similar things in common. And in particular, I think the ethical type things we have in common. A shared sort of feeling of the way we approach the world. So, for example, two people might have even similar diets. Might even be similar with what they do with might be vegetarians, for example, so they both had a similar palate which would have developed by spending similar times with each other in the previous life. You'd have developed similar maybe habits that you might notice between each other, turns of phrase, your views about the world. You might have many very similar things of interest in the music, for example, or not interest in music, or interest in certain types of topics and things. When people are connected, they often have this sense of we become very like each other in some ways. We get to know each other. We're different people, but there's certain trends we have that are similar behaviours I'm talking about here. I think even when sometimes, people with their pets, maybe they've had similar pets in a past life too, that sometimes when a new pet comes into the family, you might realise it's been another pet you've had in a previous life. But that's that's a different idea. We'll keep to the human level of this. So we might share similar ethical values. We get very quickly absorbed in each other's interests. And we don't have to explain things. We don't have to impress. And it seems also when you do meet someone that's very special like that time just flies. It's like it feels like you've been in another world for a while. So another thing that I put on my list here was what I found interesting too, because this applied a lot to Jane and myself, was birthmarks. Jane and myself had the same birthmark on mine's gone now, but at the time I met Jane, I had a mark on the back of my neck, like a little brown mark, and Jane had one the same, and we both had memories of dreams that we'd had of being attacked from behind and being cut down and cut across the back of the neck. We were being attacked by dogs. We fell into a sort of a ditch, and we were attacked with a sword from behind, and we must have either been beheaded or something like that, or killed that way as we were falling down the slope. And I'd written this dream down, and for some reason I mentioned it to Jane. I found what a thing to talk about when we meet someone earlier, on our earlier meetings, and Jane had the same dream. And the funny thing was also, when our child Danielle was born, she also had that same mark across the back of her neck there. So dreams are another important thing, because we compared a lot of our dreams actually and found that we'd had very similar dreams. And could they be memories of past life, past times that we shared together? You know, I've always written my dreams down. I've always found them interesting. People might say self-obsessed, but no, I find dreams do kind of reveal fascinating things for the future, because they often have prophecies of the future, and they often have. They look at my dream book. Actually, it's there. You know, I've started it in 1984, and I've got all little tiny text to fill it up. And so I could reference them. But Jane had the same dreams, but also the same birthmark. And Danielle, our first child together, had the same mark in the back of her neck. So there you go. So look at your dreams, compare your dreams. This could be something that could indicate a past life connection. And so basically you'll find that there's so many other things. For example, supposing you both had a similar interest in another culture, right? Jane and I we've been on holidays, for example, since we've visited Italy a lot, and particularly Rome. And I've always felt that I've had a past life in Rome. And Jane maybe had the same past life in Rome, because she has we can go and look at ancient and Greece, actually, ancient Greek and ancient Roman sites, and we're both absolutely intrigued. And Jane and I are both very, very drawn by India. You know, we saw a holy man recently, and he said to me, "You're an Indian man. You live in a Western body, but you're an Indian man," he said. And so many of these holy men that I've seen always sort of say, "You're Indian," and the Nadis say, "You're Indian" to me, but you're in a Western body. And I do feel that, because I'm very, very, very drawn, as you've seen from so many of my videos, and the name they've given me, Paraswaram. You know, those things are very powerful to me with India. But Jane is the same. She loves Indian culture. She loves glittery things like the Indian dress, have all those beautiful glittery things. She loves all the pageant of things. You know, the way Indians are all over the top with all the beautiful sort of pageant and colours and things like that. Jane loves all that, and she's so into India as well, you know. And immediately when I say come and see a holy man to an Indian holy man, oh yeah, sure, immediately on it, you know. Because she, like me, has probably had many lives before in India as well, you know, the more important than any of the others, because we have many lives, not just one, you know. We have many, maybe hundreds, and maybe lives on other planets even, actually, but we'll go into that another time. So there's all this is kind of adds up to connections with the previous life, and I'm pretty much at the end of it, actually. But another one I wrote down here is coincidences, because sometimes when you meet someone that's very significant to your life, it's as if reality itself starts to say, hey, something special's going on here, you know, and you get those synchronicities. Okay, you certainly get things like certainly Jane and I are mediums, so we got a lot of telepathic type things. We got a lot of those things where you finish each other's sentences, where I'm ringing her, she's ringing me. It's a day before texts, and you know, it was much more. All this was happening, but you get sometimes strange coincidences that happen. You know, coincidences in your life too, when you look back through your memories. Coincidences in events that happen to you. You know. And similarities in your life, just like sometimes twins, if they've been separated at birth, marry people with the same name, or have the same, or do jobs of exactly the same, or have done their whole life when compared as almost identical, and yet they've been separated at birth. And you might find a very similar thing to what happens with twins, because if twins maybe are part of the same soul, if we are part of the same soul group, there may be many similarities in our past. Anyway, there's lots there to think about and consider, isn't there? So I hope you enjoyed that, and don't forget, if you enjoy this channel, there's going to be a lot more things coming up, actually. But anyway, click that little bell thing below so that you can get updates. And we're going to be making a lot more in-depth and more professional movies as well. They won't be every week like my channel here, but we're going to have one or two quite professional ones that you may really enjoy, and we're working on planning some of that at the moment. So do follow the channel and do subscribe, as I say. Have a look at my website at those articles that I commented about. And if you're interested in this, do put your comments below and follow us. And, you know, You've seen a number of my books come up on the side here as I'm talking, so I write about this type of thing a lot in my books. And I was obviously very interested in it when I went to India. And if you read any of my books about India, like Mystic Journey to India and the movie Mystic Journey, you'll see some of the interests I've had there. But I hope you have found your soulmate, and I hope if you haven't, you do. And look for those signs that I've described, and maybe it'll make the path to finding them a little bit easier. Okay, thank you. See you next time. Bye for now. If you enjoy my channel, why not come and also join us on Facebook Live? Jane and myself broadcast regularly where you can ask questions and join in the fun of the psychic chat. Join us on Facebook Live.